What's going on, beautiful people? It's your man Louie T here with another installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Today we are going to recap week 2 the National Football League preseason. It's not my favorite thing to do. I am so glad that it is mercifully almost over. We have one more week of this, then we can get to the real fun. But we will talk about the teams that actually put forth effort in this preseason and played their starters or some semblance of their starters. So we will go over the entire slate, all 16 games, or at least the ones that are registered, and anything else that has happened and transpired in the interim as we get closer and closer to the start of the 2022 NFL regular season. I am your man, Louie T, and this is the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 285th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Today will be one gigantoid Gem Droppin Session as we go over the entire week 2 preseason slate. And I'm not going to lie to you, I did not enjoy this week as much as I did last week. I actually thought last week wasn't that bad, and last week was bad. So this week was worse, and this was supposed to be the dress rehearsal. So that kind of goes to show you how teams really perceive the preseason. At some point, this thing is going to be trimmed to 2 games, and we're going to have an 18-game regular season. That's going to happen. How soon, I can't say. Next 2-3 years, maybe. But the preseason is dying. It needs to die, but it's dying slowly, okay? It's a slow death, but these teams don't care about the preseason. You know, and someone said that the preseason is really about the young guys. That's all it's essentially turning into now. It used to be a point where teams use this opportunity to get their veterans back into shape and ready to go and play some games when the season kicked off. Now they're getting these veterans ready in practice. They're not even exposing these guys in preseason games. So let's go to the Gem Droppin Session. And as we go through the Gem Droppin Session, anything that I can think of that that jogs my memory that pertains to either one of these two teams in particular, whether it be some news that happened over the weekend or last week since the last time we spoke, or even this week, early in the week, I will mention that. If I fail to mention something, please feel free to leave me a comment and I'll try to make note of that. But in any event, let's jump into the Gem Droppin Session, shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So we had one game on Thursday, and if you recall, we had a podcast last Thursday, and I said, man, I'm looking forward to seeing Joe Buck and Troy Aikman do the game for Monday Night Football. This was an actual Thursday night game, but it was going to be on ESPN, which means it's a Monday Night Football broadcast, and they gave me the okie doke. They threw me a curveball. I was sitting dead red fastball. They gave me a curveball. I wasn't ready. It was the same crew from last year, minus Brian Greasy, who they then replaced with another former NFL quarterback in Matthew Hasselbeck. So let's just say I was disappointed, to say the least. The game was already terrible. I was only really showing up to see what Joe Buck and Troy Aikman sounded like on Monday Night Football, which is dumb because they're going to sound exactly the same, except just on a different network. But that's how my weird, geeky NFL mind works. Oh, I want to see what they sound like on ESPN instead of on Fox. Duh. Anyway, those guys are like, it's the preseason, bro. They're treating it like the rest of the league. It's the preseason. I'm not showing up for this shit. I'll see you guys in September, man. I don't have time for that. I'm not mad at them. I'm not glad at them, but I'm not mad at them. So we got Bears and Seahawks on Thursday night to kick off preseason week number 2. And we were supposed to get Drew Lock as the starter for Seattle. So Geno Smith started week 1 versus the Steelers, and Drew Lock was supposed to start this second game against the Bears, and then they were supposed to be able to come to some type of decision as to who ran the offense better. Maybe Drew Lock gets the third game start, and that actually means something for the Seahawks. I can't imagine him getting the starting job now. He just hasn't taken enough reps. I think Geno Smith probably runs that offense better anyway. I think the upside is greater with that of a Drew Lock, but also the penchant for turnovers and mistakes and things of that nature also reside with Drew Lock. I think Geno Smith is just more comfortable with what they're doing offensively in Seattle. That said, they're going to still stink. Let's not try to change the narrative there. They're still going to be garbage. But I think you're choosing between the lesser of two evils. Both of these guys aren't taking you anywhere that you want to go. But you got to choose one. I think Geno Smith may be the best option. But I jotted down a few notes from each game that I watched. Bears, they have tight ends. Like, their tight end position isn't bare. We talked about not loving their receivers. They don't have a tight end issue. I like their tight ends for the most part. Cole Kmet and some of those guys out there, I think can play football. So I think that's going to be Justin Fields' safety blanket. It's the tight end position in particular. And then Darnell Mooney. Like, that's the extent of what they have offensively. They'll get Montgomery back when the season starts, and he'll help in the backfield. But it's really Montgomery, Mooney, and the tight ends. It's almost like what the Colts have been doing for the last couple of years. One receiver, 2 or 3 tight ends that you really love, and then a running back. And then the rest is just on the quarterback to figure it out. It's not a good look for Justin Fields. He did have a solid opening possession, but it resulted in a field goal. But, his athleticism is definitely a huge boost for that Bears offense, and they've got to find ways to get him out on the edges, to get him on the move, because he's not safe in the pocket. That's abundantly clear. He's not safe in the pocket. So they have got to find creative ways, whether that's using read option to freeze the defense, use his legs as a part of the run game. They've got to figure out a way to get him outside of the pocket where he can probably protect himself a little bit better, because he is not safe in the pocket. Velus Jones Jr., he's going to be a problem. This is a guy that I told you I loved coming out of Tennessee as a all-purpose dynamo. He is, to me, was the best return man in this year's draft. And there were a ton of guys the Patriots got one of those guys that's a dynamic return man out of Houston. I think Velus Jones Jr. might, and I think the guy that they got is more of a kickoff return guy. Velus Jones Jr. is going to be a problem, I think, as a punt return man. He had a fumble. He did have a muff on a kick, but his 2 returns were explosive and dynamic. And I can see him breaking one off this year for a touchdown, if not multiple for a touchdown. He's a weapon. They don't have many. He's one of their few weapons for the Bears. I think what's become abundantly clear, and I knew this before I had seen them, just knowing who their quarterbacks were going to be, but then having a chance to look at the Seahawks running backs, their backs and run game will be key to any success that they have this season. And you probably could say that for any team that's lacking at the quarterback position, but in particular, the Seahawks, because their best players on their team right now are their receivers. In order to get them involved in the manner that you need them to be involved to have the type of impact that is going to allow you to win some games, you're going to have to get that extra safety away from there and get one-on-one with one of these guys, whether it's cover 3 or you're getting man-to-man. You got to get that second safety from back deep. You can't have a too deep shell back there. You've got to get them to feel like, look, Seattle can't throw it deep. They're going to have to beat us with their run game, and you're not allowing them to do that. And if teams have to stop that with an 8th defender, then that's how your receivers are going to be allowed to shine. And so when I look at the running back position, their best players right now, obviously Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, when they start playing in games, are going to be their best players. But when those guys have been out, it's been all about the running backs as receivers and rushers, not just ball carriers, but as receivers as well. Whether it's Travis Homer or DJ Dallas, they're going to work Kenneth Walker back in here. when he comes back. He just had surgery not too long ago. But, when those are going to be the guys that they're going to be counting on this year. I think a huge part of their offense is going to be those guys forcing teams to come up and then going play action fake and trying to push the football vertically. Roquan Smith is going to play for the Bears this year. And I want to use his example as one to just throw a blanket over the entire league with these players. Certain players have leverage and others don't. Linebackers don't have any leverage. You don't get to call shots as a linebacker in this league. Okay. You don't get to tell a team, I'm not playing for you this year. You're a linebacker. They don't give a shit what you think. Shut up and play or else. All right. Like, he didn't have a choice, especially when you give the team an ultimatum a month before the season starts. They're not responding to that. Okay. You're not going to coerce them or force their hand to do anything they don't want to do when you play linebacker. And so Roquan Smith talking about how he was, disgruntled with the Bears, didn't like how they disrespected him with the offer that they presented him in terms of a new deal. That's cool. But guess what? He did all of that griping while he was there. Why? Because the new CBA states that you can't sit out as a player that's under contract. That's the way it's set up now. So you have zero leverage. You're under contract. You have to show up. It's hard for a team to respect what you're doing when you're actually in the facility. You're at the building. They can see you, but you're just not participating, which is what he was doing. So now he says, I'm going to have to bet on myself. I've done that my entire life. I'll have to do it again. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. And even after the season, if the Bears want to, because the linebacker position is one that doesn't get paid all that much, they can franchise tag you and you still don't have a choice. Now, you could not sign that, but then you wouldn't be playing football. And we'll talk about a guy that was in a similar situation. And what did he have to do? Show the hell up. He doesn't have a choice because he has no leverage, because you're not a quarterback or you're not a wide receiver. You're not one of these premier diva positions. You're not an offensive tackle. So you don't get to sit out. Anyway, enough of that game. Let's move to Friday. Carolina at New England. And the big news coming out of that game, even though he did not play, Baker Mayfield named the starter of the Carolina Panthers. You know what? For some, that might have been a duh type of, announcement. But, and that's probably the case with Panthers fans. But for someone like myself on the outside looking in, I knew Mayfield was the best option and he made the most sense, even if you're not 100% sure that he's ready from a playbook command standpoint. He still gives you the best chance to win, and he's still a guy that you have to assess because this is the last year of his rookie contract. His fifth-year option, obviously, I think it was picked up, but this is it. This is his last year. You got to make a decision on Baker Mayfield. So obviously you don't have the leeway that you had with Sam Darnold last year to be able to say, hey, we can play Sam. If we like what we see, we can re-up. We can, if we don't like what we see, we still got time. That's not the case with Baker Mayfield. You got to make a decision this year. They're from the same draft class, right? Both of those guys' rookie contracts expire at the end of this coming season. So you need to see Baker as many times as you can. So that makes a ton of sense. But what shocked me was that they decided not to play him. Like, okay, he's your starter. You made the decision. They didn't play him or Sam Darnold. Where's the psychological sense in that? And somebody remind me, how many games did Carolina win last year again? Like, to me, the whole passing on the regular season thing or the preseason thing is reserved for really good teams or teams with elite quarterbacks. And for you, it's not worth it. You're getting your work in practice. You don't need to, worry about it in the game. Obviously, these two teams have been scrimmaging. There was a fight between the two teams in practice when they were doing the scrimmage. So maybe, Matt Rule felt like he got all the work that he needed in the scrimmage, didn't need to put his players at risk yet again. And so he didn't play them. I get that. And there's definitely a discussion to be had there. and a debate behind that. But I'm just a big proponent. And you suck, okay? The Panthers suck, okay? You're playing one of the worst divisions of football, and you are part of the reason why that's one of the worst divisions of football. And you have an opportunity to get better by playing your starters. And you don't have to play them. Look, you practiced with the Patriots all week. Okay, get them out there for 2 possessions and get them out. Just see if some of the things you've been working on, see if that comes to fruition when it actually matters now with a running clock, officials, a score being kept, all of that good stuff. Let's see if you can go out and execute with guys that are hungry, that are fighting for their NFL lives. Might not be the Patriots starters, and the Patriots did play a lot of their defensive starters, and they did play their offensive starters as well because Mac Jones played. Who? Mac Jones. The miggity, Mac Bo. He did play in this game. So Belichick said, I'm going to take your practice time, and I'm going to go ahead and get me some reps in the game. That's what I would have done. So I don't know. Matt Rule can do whatever the hell he wants to do. That just doesn't make sense to me. But to each his own. New England's offense, I think it's going to stink this year. I've said this already. There's no, like, Belichick is doing that Belichickian thing where, he's trying to look like he's smarter than everyone else by having 2 guys. He hasn't made a decision, and he said that it's going to be like a joint effort this year between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. That's the stupidest thing ever. Those 2 guys, first of all, Matt Patricia was a defensive coordinator, which I'm not saying that doesn't mean he doesn't know offensive football, because clearly in order to be a defensive coordinator, you have to know something about stopping offenses. So I'm pretty sure he has a background that allows him to be able to call offensive plays. When Joe Judge was a special teams guy, again, he knows football. So I'm not saying that he can't help, but at the end of the day, both of those guys stink. Both of those guys stink. And I don't think personally that those guys are capable of calling a game, period. So I think their offense is going to suffer. If you're a fan of the New England Patriots, I would not look for Mac Jones to be dynamic this year. I just wouldn't. So I'm going to tell you this right now. My thought process with the Patriots is that their defense is going to keep them in ball games this year, but their offense is going to hurt them. That's what I feel. But we'll see. I could be wrong about this, right? I could be absolutely flat out wrong about the Patriots this season and what they ultimately are, but my assumption is they're going to stink. So we'll see what happens. That's my biggest takeaway from that game is that Matt Jones got out there. He didn't look like much, which is what I feel about their offense moving forward. And their defense was really good. They were playing PJ Walker. I don't really know what to make of that. But Belichick, if there's one thing I trust Bill Belichick and his staff to do, is to coach up the defense and get that to where it keeps them in ball games. So New Orleans at Green Bay. Obviously, no Aaron Rodgers. Jameis Winston is still working his way back from knee surgery, so he wasn't going to play in this game. So I cut him a break. I'm still holding out hope that Jordan Love doesn't stink. So I'm still intrigued by him. That gave me a reason to watch. So Jordan Love, what is apparent to me with Jordan Love is he has talent, and I think he just needs more reps, which will in turn give him more confidence. I see a guy that has all the talent in the world, and I think he's lacking in confidence. There are throws that I see him make that I say that's an A1 top-notch throw. And there are times where he just looks flustered, confused, haven't seen that look before. What do? I probably should just take off and run, but I don't want to run right now. Maybe I should run. Maybe I shouldn't run. And then he decides to run. So what that says to me is he just needs more reps. He needs more opportunities. So he's not going to get them, obviously, unless something catastrophic happens. So he's in between a rock and a hard place. He's in a tough spot because the one thing that he needs more of, he can't get playing behind the guy that he's ultimately playing behind in Green Bay. Romeo Doubs is an enigma. I mean, ultimately, here's my thought on Romeo Doubs, because remember, I told you guys that he was, a guy that was a hot topic in Green Bay. One of the guys Aaron Rodgers was referring to when he talked about not catching the football, things of that nature. And Aaron Rodgers has since come out and said that the guys have responded well and that they're playing better now. Of course, that's what he would say. But he had another catch in the game that was extraordinary. Went up top shelf, climbed in the ladder and grabbed it for a touchdown. Also had a ball that he dropped. I don't know if you want to call it a drop or not. It was catchable, but it wasn't the easiest catch to make. He's going to frustrate you as a Packers fan. But I think when it's all said and done, he's going to help you more than he hurts you. And he's going to end up being one of Rodgers' favorite targets this season. And he's going to end up being really good for the Green Bay Packers. That's what I think. But he's an enigma right now. He's going to frustrate the hell. And it's not going to take much to piss Aaron Rodgers off, because he didn't have to deal with this shit with Devontae Adams. So it's going to piss him off. The first time that Sammy Watkins gets hurt and he's out 4 to 6 weeks, and Randall Cobb's also out for 2 to 4 weeks. So those two being out of the lineup overlaps. And now he's just playing with a bunch of young guys and one veteran receiver in Alan Lazard. It's going to piss him off when Romeo Doubs, he throws a perfect slant to Romeo Doubs and on 3rd and 8 for a 15-yard gain, and he drops it. It's going to piss Aaron Rodgers off. Or he throws a ball that he thinks he should catch. Maybe it's a little bit higher than he would like it, but it's one that Rodgers feels like should be caught, and he drops it. I don't know. We'll see. On the New Orleans Saints side, I don't know if this guy's making your team or not, but this young guy, Kirk Merritt, he looks like a really solid return man. Watching him return a kickoff, and he looked explosive and dynamic there. I'm like, hey, I want to see more of this guy, and I don't know if they already have someone in that role or not, but explosion and dynamic, because not everyone's built to be a return man, but it when you see it, and he looks like he can fit that that description of a NFL kickoff return man. So, and a dynamic one at that. Texans at the Rams. The Rams don't ever play their starters, so there's usually no interest with them for me in the preseason whatsoever. However, the Texans, who really pissed me off last week, I told you I talked about the dollop of Daisy, commercial. Some of you were like, "What is that? How have you never seen the Daisy sour cream commercial? Everything tastes better with a dollop of Daisy, yeah." How have you never seen that commercial? That's crazy. Anyway, I said I didn't want a dollop of Davis. And I needed the whole thing. Like, I needed the whole container. Like, this guy's a second-year quarterback. What are we doing? You play for one of the worst teams in football. This organization is trash right now. What is this man doing on the bench? He should be playing a quarter in the first preseason game and a half of football in the second game. What are you doing? Well, they heard me loud and clear, because he played almost the entire first half. Not almost. He played the entire first half of this game. And so, first things first, the Rams have this defensive lineman named Jonah Williams. And I was thinking, I've heard that name before. Why am I tripping? Because I'm thinking of Alabama offensive tackle Jonah Williams, that's now a member of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's why that name rung a bell. I'm like that. And then they said something during the telecast, and I missed a piece of it. And so it sounded like, the former offensive lineman. I'm like, wait a minute. Am I tripping right now? So I had to look the dude up. No, it's not the same Jonah Williams. Clearly, that would have been a news story, right? A former first-round pick makes a switch, now on the Rams playing defensive line, and damn good at it. This dude had a vicious, flavor-delicious spin move that led to a sack and forced fumble of Davis Mills. Then he had another play defensively where I'm looking at him and I'm saying, are you learning from Aaron Donald? Are you that nasty now? Or is this just because the Texans suck? Or is it a combination of the two? I guess you can do nothing but get better by being around Aaron Donald every day. You have to learn by osmosis, I guess, because this Jonah Williams guy looks the part. Anyway, Nico Collins continuing to impress. I remember I wasn't a big Nico Collins fan at Michigan. He was a highly sought after recruit, never really lived up to the hype at Michigan, but he looks legit for the Texans. He looks like their best receiver, not named Brandon Cooks. And so if he can continue to develop opposite of Cooks, that'll give them a nice little 1-2 punch there. You know, somebody has to step up opposite of Cooks, and maybe Nico Collins is the guy. He had a nice catch for the touchdown right before the half where he snatched it away from a defender. Good for him. Marlon Mack appears to be back. Remember, he tore his knee up in a contract year with the Colts, signed a 1-year deal to come back to Indy, never got the rock because Jonathan Taylor was ridiculously good. And so he's looking to resurrect his career in Houston, and he looked good in this game. And I hope that it works out for him in Houston because I am a Marlon Mack fan. But the main event here was Davis Mills. And I thought he looked okay. I wasn't blown away, but that's always the case with Davis Mills. You never walk away blown away by Davis Mills. You go, he can play in this league. At a high level, I don't know about that, but he can play in this league. Jury's still out on Davis Mills, obviously, which is why I thought he needed to play a ton more. But whatever the case may be, he played a half of football, made a ridiculous throw down the sidelines that was caught by Philip Dorsett. Then they tacked on 15 on top of the throw down the sideline for a defenseless hit on the receiver. And then he throws a touchdown to Nico Collins, all in the span of 25 seconds. It was beautifully done by Davis Mills. And he's going to be intriguing to watch this year because they've got to make a decision on him this year. Because if they stink again, they'll be in position to draft a quarterback. And obviously, with all the draft capital that they have from the Deshaun Watson trade, their own pick, they're going to be in a really good spot to make something happen. Because I think they're done paying all that they have to pay for the Dolphins, for Laramie Tunzel. So I think they're in a position now to start really building this thing up. So if either you're building around Davis Mills or you're looking to find the quarterback that you need to build this team around. So this will be a big season for him. Detroit at Indy. Nothing to see here. They passed and punted on the game, so I will do the exact same. Denver at Buffalo. So remember, our guy, JL Smooth, John Livingston, was adamant that the Bills were making a mistake, that there was nothing to be gained by playing their starters, and that he was nervous. And I was like, dude, you got nothing to worry about. First of all, this is the reason why I don't get bent out of shape about teams deciding to play their starters, because it's football. You can get hurt at any time. You can get hurt in practice. You get hurt ordering pizza, as D'Angelo Hall once did. Now, granted, he was coming off of surgery already, right? But you can get hurt doing anything. So playing your guys in a game it's football. It's football. So no one's looking to put bubble wrap on these dudes. At least I'm not. So I'm all about keeping the mileage low, though. If you can keep the mileage low, keep the mileage low. You know, I'm all for running backs not taking a single snap in preseason. I don't need my running backs taking hits. They're going to take plenty of them during the season. But my quarterback, the goal is to protect him and have him not take hits. So if he gets out there, gets a couple of throws under his belt, and then you get him out of there, that's what I'm looking for. He's not supposed to be getting hit anyway. Buffalo went out and did the thing that Super Bowl contending teams that play their starters in the preseason do. Josh Allen went out there, handed it off a couple of times. Those were explosive plays. Threw it a few times. Those are explosive plays. And then he did a pirouette where he went in a circle. Like, which way did he go? Which way did he go? He ran up the pocket, turned back around, ran backwards again, then ran up again, and then decided, oh, I see Gabe Davis in the end zone. I'll throw it to him 35 yards down the field for a touchdown. And his day was done. 3 of 3, 43 yards, touchdown, game over. What more do you want? That's why I was like, you don't need to be worried. Now, anything could have happened, obviously, but it's football. Anything could happen week 1. Anything could happen week 5. He went out there, he threw 3 passes, he handed it off 3 or 4 times, and then he was out of the game, touchdown, just like that done. Nothing to see here. The defense, I didn't think was as sharp, but they were missing some players. They played some of their starters, but they didn't play like their two safeties and guys like that. Those are veteran players too, so you want to kind of, again, keep the mileage low on some of your veteran players that don't need to be exposed in the preseason. But Josh Allen, so one of my biggest takeaways, outside of the fact that the Bills are a well-oiled machine and they're in mid-season form, is that Josh Johnson will be a really solid backup for the Broncos. Like, he's the perfect backup for Russell Wilson, even though if history repeats itself, last year was an outlier for Russell Wilson. He doesn't miss games. Prior to last year, he had not missed a single game in his NFL career. So if that trend continues, they'll never have to see Josh Johnson on the field. I've always liked Josh Johnson, this latest iteration of him. Not the guy that was in Tampa Bay that had a chance to start that stunk, but the guy that matured, played in other leagues and then came back into the NFL when he got another chance with Washington. And then, like, every team would call Josh Johnson if they had a problem on Wednesday and they needed a guy that could come in and play quarterback or be a backup for them. They call him on Wednesday. He'd be ready by Sunday. And that guy gets it. Super smart, quick study. You can build a quick little game plan around his skill set. He's the perfect backup for him. I actually thought he played well in this game. I put Josh Allen as a cheat code in my notes. I've already explained to you why. That touchdown pass he threw to Gabe Davis was stupid. It was dumb. And then Devin Singletary looks very comfy back there, man. It's like the light bulb finally went off for him. And I was a massive Devin Singletary fan coming out of FAU. And I really wanted to see him. I think, what was it, FAU? Yeah, he was an FAU guy. Because there's FAU, then there's FIU. I just want to make sure I got my schools right. But I think he went to Florida Atlantic. So anyway, he's starting to look more like the Devin Singletary that I fell in love with coming out of school than the one that has been in the league that's kind of been mid to this point. And then kind of what I think it is that now they have James Cook, and now he's got to step his game up, or James Cook will take his snaps. He looks good too. It's a really good problem to have if you're the Buffalo Bills. Anyway, Washington at Kansas. Well, first of all, and I have to mention this, the Bills scored 42 points in this game. Like, teams don't score 40 in preseason games. But Case Keenum came in and they went ape shit. They kept the starters in for a little bit to give Case a little bit of run. And yeah, they went ham. And the Broncos didn't play their starters, but that's not Buffalo's problem. Washington at Kansas City. So this game was big. Me being a Washington fan, I was anxious to see what the defense would look like against Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense. I saw what the Chiefs did offensively against the Bears the week prior. Mahomes, bing, bang, boom, touchdown. His day was done, and it was relatively easy. And so I wanted to see if Washington's defense would put up any resistance against Mahomes in that offense. Conversely, I was looking for Washington's offense to go out, and we learned late in the week that Chris Jones was a scratch. He had banged himself up in practice, and they weren't going to chance him. Great. That makes it even easier on an offensive line that was in flux, that had a whole bunch of moving parts, to see what Carson Wentz and that offense can do. Antonio Gibson was a huge storyline going into the game because of the fumble the week previous, him leading the league in non-quarterback fumbles the year prior. And so he was on kickoff returns. He was no longer the primary back, but they're using him as a weapon. I like the way they're utilizing him now. But Mahomes did exactly what I feared he was going to do, which was run through that defense like a hot knife through butter. Now, they made him work for it, but five third downs up, 5 third downs down. They went 5 of 5 on third downs, including a touchdown pass on the final snap of the game from Mahomes to Jody Fortson, who had both of Mahomes's touchdown tosses in this game. Washington's got a problem on third downs. not just offensively or defensively, but offensively as well. The first team offense was 0 of 3 on third downs. Don't care that they didn't have J.D. McKissick. You got to find a way to convert on third downs to get you in the scoring range, and they didn't do that. So they were 0 of 3 with the first team offense on third downs, 0 of 5 stopping the Kansas City Chiefs on defense on third downs. It was a rough go of it, the third downs wise for the Washington Commanders. And there's no down more important in football than third down, and right now they suck at it. So they've got some improvements to make. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, they've got it on tilt, man. I told you, I think it's going to be addition by subtraction with Tyreek Hill, because there were so many times where Mahomes would lock in to Tyreek Hill and it would, take away from other guys that may be open on the play, but because he's fixated on Tyreek Hill and trying to get him the rock, he's not noticing other guys coming open. Now there's that responsibility of getting 10 to football, even though he's a weapon and a dynamic one at that. That doesn't exist anymore. Now I can spread it around to all 5 guys. I don't have to have it be, man, if they take Tyreek away, we're in trouble. Nope. I got Juju Smith-Schuster. I've got the rookie Sky Moore. I've got Travis Kelce. I got Noah Gray at the tight end position. They signed Justin Watson. He kicked our ass in this game. Did Justin Watson from Tampa Bay at the tight end position. They've got all these weapons, man. They got MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling from Green Bay. They can spread it around now. Not to mention Mecole Hardman is still out there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire can catch it out of the backfield. I love Jerick McKinnon for that offense, and they brought him back. So he's got so many guys he can throw the football to. And I think it makes them that much more scary on offense. And they look it right now. 3 possessions in the preseason for the Chiefs' first-team offense, 3 touchdowns for the Chiefs' first-team offense in the preseason. So that was that. Tampa Bay at Tennessee. This was another game I wasn't really interested in. The only reason I watched was Malik Willis. Had he not played, there was no reason to watch this game. There was no Brady, obviously. He just came back, as a matter of fact. Came back yesterday. There was talk about Brady. Would he be back? And their head coach was a little non-committal on when he would be back. And so there were questions of, is everything okay with Tom Brady? All of that has been quelled. He was back at camp. There's something of, I want to have a Tampa Bay Buccaneers discussion. I don't know if today's the day to do it, but I think there is a discussion to be had at some point with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they could fall flat on their face this year with all the offensive line woes, with Brady being non-committal for the season. Like, I get it. He's 45 and, his wife was, she's talking like, hey, bro, like, I need you to value this family or I'm out of here. And I think that's why he was away, trying to appease his wife, spend a little bit of time with her, get her on board. Like, hey, babe, this is the last year. I promise. I'll be doing booth work. I'll be home more. You can go back to doing your thing. I'll be home with the kids a little bit more. I think he was smoothing shit over, because she couldn't have been like, she's allowing Tom to play football because she knows this is what makes her husband happy. But I don't think she's happy necessarily. I can't speak for their situation. I don't know. But Brady's not all in. Is what I said all of that to say this. Brady is not all in. He's not all in mentally. Anytime a guy starts talking about retirement, man's already signed a contract to be a lead analyst when he's done. Anytime you start having those conversations about a player that's still playing, shit's over. Then you couple in the fact that they've got offensive line injuries and guys retiring and things of that nature this offseason. On the interior of their offensive line, they are a mess right now. The worst thing you can have for Tom Brady is interior pressure. He can't stand it. He'll step up with guys coming around the edge. That interior pressure, he can't move. There's a real conversation to be had around the Bucs, but Kyle Phillips, wide receiver out of UCLA, I think they got him in the 5th round, a guy that I liked. Man, he looks really good for the Titans. Not only as a receiver, but as a punt return, man. He almost broke one in this game for a touchdown. He looks really good. Malik Willis and Caleb Farley. Let's have a Malik Willis and a quick Caleb Farley discussion. So Caleb Farley, 1st round pick last year by the Titans. coming off of major knee injury. I believe it was a major knee injury when they drafted him in the first round. I think the expectations were kind of like mid for him last year. Like, hey, if we get something from him, cool. If not, he's coming off an injury. And then he injured himself again. And so he really was a non-factor for the Titans. He looks good, man. He looks like a first-round corner right now. They need him to step up. They need him to step up in that secondary. It's good to see him playing ball again, and hopefully he gets back to where he was when the Titans decided to spend a first-round pick on him. Malik Willis, though, is the real star of the show here. And I was less impressed with him this week than I was in week 1 of the preseason. It kind of felt like how I felt with Sam Howell of the Washington Commanders. Super impressive his first game as a pro in the preseason. Second game, not so much. Took a step back. Willis was very inaccurate, very indecisive. The athleticism is clearly a plus for him, but missed a lot of throws you would like to see him hit. And so I think he was solid. He wasn't terrible, right? Same with Sam Howell. He was solid. He wasn't terrible, but it was one of those, okay, back to reality, because, that first game got you really excited and you were thinking, man, maybe this guy could be somebody that can help a little bit sooner rather than later. And then you had to remind yourself, oh, yeah, this, second game in the NFL, he's got a learning curve. It's going to be a while. So that's kind of what I gathered from that performance against the Buccaneers. San Francisco at Minnesota, both teams punted on the game, so will I. Pittsburgh at Jacksonville. So this is an intriguing game for me in particular because I've been watching the Jacksonville Jaguars like a hawk. This is their Washington's first opponent of the season, so I want to see what we're getting ourselves into. And then the Steelers are intriguing because this is the first time we've talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers without Ben Roethlisberger since 2004. So this is, uncharted territory, essentially. And you're anxious because they did spend a first-round pick, the only team in this past year's draft to do so on a quarterback in the first round. So I wanted to see how, Kenny Pickett is developing. What's going on with Mitchell Trubisky, who right now is penciled in as the starter. Mason Rudolph is like, hey, don't forget about me. And so I really wanted to see what was going on there with the Steelers. So this was a fun game to watch. I've enjoyed both Steelers games to this point. The Jags are young and talented. That's the first thing that jumps off the screen at you. On defense, they're young, fast, physical, talented. On offense, they've got a ton of young guys, a couple of old guys sprinkled in, but for the most part, it's a bunch of youth, a bunch of young guys running around trying to make plays. It's a lot of youthful exuberance on that football team. That's what makes them the most dangerous. If you get caught slipping and tripping, these young boys will run a circle around you. That's what they were doing up front to the Steelers. We got to have a conversation about this Steelers offensive line. I think this thing has a chance to be a mess and a sieve. Let's talk about TJ Watt. The man played in a few possessions. Again, I've got that same Mike Tomlin type of mindset, which is it's football. I'm playing my guys. So they played their starters in the first preseason game. They played their starters again this game. I don't think TJ Watt and company played last game, but they played this game, which is what I would do. And Watt got a sack. Go figure, right? God, he's good. But who else, was having issues protecting? The Steelers' offensive line. They made the Jaguars front look like it was dominant. Okay. Their number 1 overall pick, Trayvon Walker, almost got to Mitchell Trubisky. There was a holding penalty to stop another guy from getting to Mitchell Trubisky. Arden Key did get to Mitchell Trubisky on a third down for a sack where he was being double teamed. First of all, Arden Key is all of 255 pounds, 60 maybe max, soaking wet, tall, angular. There's no reason that he should be splitting a double team unless he turns sideways and turns into a piece of paper, which he's capable of doing. But that's not what he did on that play. He just bullied two dudes and got to the quarterback. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I don't know, but they need to fix it quick in Pittsburgh. The good thing is 2 out of their 3 quarterbacks are very mobile, so that's going to help them, but they need to be better up front. Let's talk about Kenny Pickett. Man, he looks good. Almost to the point where you've got to be tempted. And I understand that the level of competition that he's playing against at all times isn't the level that he will be facing on Sunday should he be named the starter. I can admit that. However, I also have to acknowledge that he's been pretty effing sweet in these first 2 preseason games, and he looks like he's still playing at Pitt. That's what you want to see from a young quarterback, is that it doesn't seem like the game has changed much, that it's too big for him, or the speed of the game is moving too fast. You want to see a guy that makes the transition smoothly at this level. And look, there's growing pains that are inherent with the position. You know, most times guys aren't going to come in here and just slay the league. But it's always nice in the preseason to see a young guy that you've invested in come in and look the part. Kenny Pickett looks the part. And keep in mind, it's not like it's Ben Roethlisberger in front of him keeping him from playing. It's Mitchell Trubisky. Side note, Mason Rudolph looks really good this preseason as well. I don't want to leave him out. I'm not a Mason Rudolph fan, but he's looked good. It's Mitchell Trubisky stopping you, and maybe Kenny Pickett is still your 3rd quarterback right now. Maybe Mason Rudolph has played well enough to keep him at bay and keep him as the number 3 guy. And if you're the Steelers, you probably prefer a veteran quarterback at this juncture because this team is good enough defensively to keep you in ball games and give you a chance. And a veteran is more likely to give you a chance to win than a young guy is. Your future is in Kenny Pickett. It's not in Mason Rudolph. It's definitely not in Mitchell Trubisky. And so the sooner you get his career started, the better it is. And so I don't know what they're ultimately going to do. Right now, it's Mitchell Trubisky. He's going to start the season. But how long of a leash does he have? And I'm anxious to see who the second quarterback is. It's not a foregone conclusion. I still think it's going to be Mason Rudolph. But because he's been really good this preseason too. And he was really good in this game as well. But it's not a foregone conclusion that it's Mason Rudolph. As when camp started, it was Mitchell Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and then it was Kenny Pickett. There may be a little bit of movement there. I don't know. We'll see. But I can tell you this much. Kenny Pickett is making it very interesting in Pittsburgh, to say the least. And I'll just say this too. Trevor Lawrence, his mobility is a problem. But he's missing receivers on outbreaking routes that are completable passes that is giving the opposing defense breaks. I'm hoping that continues through week 1 because he had some opportunities to hit some guys and he was just high, missing the mark. And it allowed the Steelers to get off the field a couple of times. I would love it if he would do the same thing against Washington because we need all the help we can get on 3rd downs, as you can see. So I can see he's going to be a problem with his legs. We have to account for his legs. I could see him picking up 2 or 3 first downs just off the strength of him running. And, our problems with rush lane discipline and all that stuff, it'll come back to haunt you in a game against a team like Jacksonville with a mobile quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, who's not afraid to use his legs. So they're going to have to be very cognizant of that. Vegas Raiders at the Miami Dolphins. Again, this was another game that I really wasn't interested in because Derek Carr and none of those guys played. Tua played. So that's what got me involved. Had Tua sat out like he did last week, I would have sat out as well. So Tua, to me, and I'm a Tua fan, but he looks fidgety at the quarterback position, like a guy that doesn't want to get hit. And I get it. When you're behind an offensive line like the one the Dolphins put in front of him last year, it makes you fidgety. But he has got to calm down back there. It's not always safe behind that offensive line. I am aware. I get it. But there were times where I felt like he was just, oh, where do I go? Where do I go? Got to get rid of it because of what happened in the past. And that's what happens when you've been battered and bruised, is that you then start to see ghosts, or you start to have that internal clock speed up, and he just needs to settle down, settle down. I think sometimes him being left-handed affects how the Dolphins call their offense, because you don't want to just call a bunch of boots to the left because he's left-handed. It makes it easy for the defense to key in on those boots. So you have to call some to his right, but it's just awkward watching him move to his right and then try to square his body to throw, go into his right. So just a little bit of things they have to iron out. Obviously, there was no Tyreek Hill. There was no Jalen Waddle. So the guys that are really going to make life easy for him didn't play in this game. But he's got to calm down. He's got to settle in. When he settles down, he throws a good ball, a catchable ball, an accurate ball. He's just got to settle down. They've got to protect him too. The only way to get him to settle down is to protect him. Jarrett Stidham appears very poised in Vegas, which is why they felt so comfortable trading Nick Mullins to the Vikings, because Nick Mullins was supposed to be the backup quarterback there. That's why they brought him in. And Stidham was supposed to be the guy that helps everybody learn the offense, help Derek Carr learn the offense. Obviously, Stidham came from New England with their new head coach, Josh McDaniels. So that's what, offensive coordinators that are new head coaches like to do, bring a backup quarterback with them that is familiar with the system so that he can help those around him learn it quicker. So Stidham is a young guy, though. He's not like Chase Daniel, who you bring with you to help the veterans or the other players, the younger guys, but he's no threat. Stidham is a guy that they liked in New England. Obviously, they didn't love him, but they liked him, and Josh McDaniels likes him a lot, and he played well in this game, and he's been actually really solid in the preseason, which is what prompted them to trade Nick Mullins, because they feel like they have a competent backup quarterback here in Jarrett Stidham. Had he not performed well, they would have held on to Nick Mullins. So there's that piece of information. Also, the Raiders are going to release, I was talking to my buddy the other day, and I didn't see this coming, but they're going to release Kenyon Drake, the running back. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Now, I know the Patriots are running back by committee, and they don't, marry themselves to any one running back. They've never really done that. They've always had a stable of backs. And so they're going to do that in Vegas. And I maybe Kenyon Drake just didn't fit in what they were doing. I don't know. I thought he would be good for their offense because he's a pass catching back out of the backfield, but apparently that situation didn't go as planned. And then, of course, I know you guys heard this. So Dana White, who runs the UFC, was on a podcast. I think he was with Gronk doing a podcast, and he spilled the beans. So, once upon a time, we were all putting on our detective sleuth caps, trying to figure out who Brady was referring to in The Shop. Because remember, he was on the HBO LeBron James show, The Shop, talking about, his foray into free agency and a potential destination that was so close to happening. And then they kind of reneged and pulled the plug on it last second. And so in doing that, he got pissed off because he was at the latter stages of that process when they pulled the plug, and he got pissed off and says, "You're really going to keep that fucking guy?" So we were trying to figure out who he was talking about. You're really going to choose that fucking guy? Like, he's trash. You're going to choose him over me? And so, obviously the internet is undefeated. They got to work, and the first name that came out was Derek Carr. But there was no proof of that. And Brady, dispelled that, said, I wasn't talking about Derek Carr. So we started sniffing elsewhere. And, after a while of sniffing and not finding anything, you stop looking. So we put that to bed, and it was never to be revisited until Brady was no longer playing. And maybe he wrote a book or something. And then he talked about, the time I almost became a Vegas Raider, and John Gruden decided he didn't want to do it at the last second. Me and Gronk were going to go there and try to help them win a championship, and Gruden pulled the plug at the last second. We would have found that out in a book by Tom Brady, 15 years after he retired. Well, Dana White decided, forget about your book. I'm just going to tell everybody right now. I'm on with Gronk. He said, I thought I would never tell this story publicly. You were dying to tell that story, bro. Shut up. Okay. You were definitely dying for the clout. You were dying to tell this story. And he told it. He talked about the time that Brady and Gronk were this close to signing with the Vegas Raiders. Obviously, that would be now 3 off seasons ago when Brady made the jump from New England to Tampa. He was going to go to Vegas, and Gronk was going to accompany him. And they were going to go there and unseat Derek Carr, and that would have made Derek Carr expendable. They would have traded Carr away more likely than not, gotten a haul for him. And Brady, it would have started the Brady era in Vegas, and that would have been a hell of a way to kick off your start, because I believe that was the first year of the Vegas Raiders in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. So that would have been a hell of a way to start off Vegas. I mean, it would have sent their evaluation through the roof. Season tickets would have been sold out, and it would have been a must-see. I mean, it's already a must, destination for any opposing team's fan. You just make a weekend out of it. Hey, all right, we're playing the Raiders in Vegas. Let's just go up there for the weekend, kick it, see the game on Sunday, and then come back home. It would have been must-see TV, and they would have been on, Sunday night and Monday night 5 times the maximum allowed. You know what Brady does to a team, like he's done with the Bucs. But it didn't happen, and Gruden got cold feet at the very end and decided, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stick with Derek Carr. And, wow, how different the Raiders' fortunes could have been had they had Tom Brady. Because they've had talent now, not as much as the Buccaneers, right? Not as much as the Buccaneers, but what he would have done with Gronk and Darren Waller and a small white slot receiver in Hunter Renfrow, Brady would have went bananas. It would have been like being in New England all over again. Give him a couple of tight ends and a white slot receiver, and he would have went to work. And that's what he would have done in Vegas. He would have went to work with those dudes. So, what it could have been, Raiders fans. Yeah, you're stuck with Derek Carr now. Anyway, Dallas at the Chargers. These teams punted on the game. They had inter-squad, well, not inter-squad, but they had scrimmages throughout the course of the week. So, the Chargers don't play their starters anyway. So they practiced with Dallas, and they didn't play their starters. But I do have to mention Kevontae Turpin, the former USFL league MVP that the Cowboys signed, former TCU Horned Frog that had some run-ins with the law, which, the Cowboys are never opposed to signing guys with, sketchy backgrounds. Gave the young man an opportunity, and he's showing why he was the USFL MVP. Returned a kickoff and a punt in the same game against the Chargers. I don't know if that's, more of his skill set and his ability, or more of the Chargers' inability to stop him, or a combination of both. Keep in mind, it's the preseason, and your starters are going to make up 2/3 of your special teams units. So keep that in mind when you go crazy over someone returning, punts and kickoffs for touchdowns, and seeing some of these big returns. Half of these guys aren't even going to be here, and most of these guys won't even be on the coverage units when the season starts. So just pump your brakes on that. But you still got to be talented to do what he did. One of them, the punt, was ridiculous because he ran in a circle, ran backwards, and then ran forwards, and then ran for a touchdown. So this guy clearly has some talent. And if he wasn't on the roster before, he's on the roster now. So Philly at Cleveland. These two teams punted on this game. So will I. Cincinnati at the Giants. So the big news and story from this game was Kayvon Thibodeau. We'll get there in a second. Let's get to everything else first, and then we'll finish up with Kayvon Thibodeau and his situation. So Daniel Jones, you know what I've come to the realization of with Daniel Jones, and I think I already felt this way, but watching him in this particular offense under Brian Daboll, he's going to be really solid in this offense. Daniel Jones is going to be a 13, 14-year quarterback in this league. He's going to be like Blake Bortles is right now. Always keep a job. Always be around. You need somebody, you can sign him. I don't know how likable he is. He seems like a go along to get along, get along to go along to get along type of guy. Not ruffling any feathers, solid guy in the locker room, smart guy, quick study, which bodes well for being a backup quarterback in this league. I think he ultimately is a backup quarterback. I don't think he's a starter. But I think you can win football games with Daniel Jones, and I think they could win some games this year, but I don't know if they'll win enough to make them want to bring him back. Remember, they did not pick up his fifth-year option. He's solid. He's like Mitchell Trubisky. Like, Mitchell's cool, right? But you're not winning anything of substance with him. I could easily see Daniel Jones being like Ryan Tannehill. Doesn't work in New York, ends up somewhere else as a backup, gets an opportunity, gets back in, plays well in a system that suits his skill set, really strong run game, competent defense around him, a couple of tight ends or targets he can get it to, and he's solid. Really solid, and you can win football games with him, but you're probably not going to win a Super Bowl with him. Similar to Ryan Tannehill. That's just the vibe I get from like the interception. Could that tight end have caught it? Sure, but was that shit way too hot for how close he was and out in front of a guy that you're not sure if he can catch really good or not? You're damn right. That ball was high and hot. That shit had hot sauce to go on it. Spicy. Yeah. So it skipped right off his damn hands. And a great diving stab by the rookie Hill for the Bengals. And you're going to get that from him. Every now and again, he's going to make a mistake. He's going to cut one loose. He's going to throw a bad ball where you're like, bro, what are you looking at? Like Ryan Tannehill did in the playoff game against Cincinnati. And that's the reason that you can't win, is because he's going to revert to being Daniel Jones at some point. He'll play better this year in Brian Daboll's system because it fits him. But I don't think he'll play well enough for them to want him back. Yes, I gathered all of that from a preseason game. I don't know. And any Giants fans out there can tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't know. I was just watching the preseason game. Did Kenny Golladay get like third, fourth receiver reps? Was Colin Johnson and who was the other receiver? There were two of them. David Sills and Colin Johnson. Are they ahead of Kenny Golladay on the depth chart? I'm just asking for a friend. I'm not sure. I'm just curious. And if so, what does that mean for Kenny Golladay? Because, yeah, he dropped the ball in preseason game 1. He was disappointing last year. And this staff owes him nothing, right? This staff owes him absolutely nothing. They didn't sign him in free agency. They didn't give him the money. There are no ties to them other than financially because of what the last guy did. So they don't have to like him. They don't have to make him work. Is he third or fourth right now at receiver? Because I just assumed he wasn't playing. I didn't see him on the field. He wasn't getting any targets. And then they get into the red zone, and all of a sudden, Kenny Galladay's in the game. And I'm like, wait a minute. And we're in the second quarter, by the way, at this point. Hey, wait a minute. Kenny Galladay's in? Now, Daniel Jones was still in at this point. And obviously, if Daniel Jones is in, the starting offensive line is still in there and all of that good stuff. But I'm like, this seems a little funky because he hasn't touched the football once. Hasn't even had a target. It was the David Sills, the fifth show or whatever he is, fifth, fourth. He was kicking ass. I don't know. And that Kenny Golladay situation is really interesting. He could go down as one of the biggest busts in terms of a free agent in Giants history if this thing doesn't turn around and fast. Jesse Bates III is back for the Cincinnati Bengals. So remember earlier in the show, I told you guys there was another guy that I was going to talk about where I said that, you just don't have the leverage as a player if you're not a quarterback, wide receiver, corner, or a tackle. Like those are the premier positions in the league, and those are the positions that have a little say-so as to what they do. They can move a little weight and force the hand of an organization, but nobody can like a quarterback, right? Well, we've seen Trent Williams, maneuver the system in Washington and force his way out of there. We've seen, other positions, the receiver position this offseason in particular, A.J. Brown forced his way out of Tennessee, essentially, even though he said he was willing to stay in Tennessee. Obviously, Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, Devontae Adams in Green Bay. We've seen these receivers strong-arm these teams. Now, they're getting back a handsome, haul in return, but it's still a receiver essentially saying, I want out, and them appeasing that receiver. Roquan Smith tried the same thing. He was denied. His application for reassignment was denied, okay, which is you're a linebacker, shut up, sit at your cubicle and do your job. And Jesse Bates is a safety. If that's not the same as linebacker, it's worse. Safeties, they're getting paid a little bit more now, but it's one of those positions where teams are like, I can find a guy in the 5th round. I can find a guy in the 3rd round. I can find a guy in the 7th round at safety. I don't have to pay you anything. Shut up, play ball. And so Jesse Bates III wants to be paid. And the Bengals are like, nah, we're good. Like, we like you. We don't love you. And we're going to franchise you, though, because we don't want to lose you yet. Because we want to run it back. We went to the Super Bowl last year. But we're not looking to give you a long-term deal. Now, not at least the kind you're looking for. And look, what is he not going to do? What is he going to do? Not play football this year? Sit out an entire year? No, he's not going to do that. He's going to play football. Because as Roquan Smith said, he has to bet on himself. And he's in a much better position than Roquan Smith is because the Bears could just franchise tag Roquan Smith next year. And he's got no say-so. He'll be doing what Jesse Bates just did. Sit out all of training camp in the first 2 preseason games and then show up before the season starts and have to play anyway, which is what Jesse Bates is going to have to do. But he is under a franchise tag. So he was allowed to be away from the team, did not have to participate in training camp or any of that stuff, which is what Roquan Smith did. He didn't participate in anything, but he was there in the facility around his teammates. But Bates is already on the franchise tag now. And so next year, the likelihood is they won't franchise tag him again. He'll get his bread, even if that means getting it elsewhere. So again, another player with not a lot of leverage, trying to flex his muscles and realizing, damn, I got to play ball. You'll get yours. Stay healthy. This is the thing that sucks about the safety position. When they get shut down like Marcus May did last year, Marcus May tore his ACL after, signing that franchise tag reluctantly. You'd hate to see something like that happen to Jesse Bates III. And that's the danger. And that's why these guys want the long-term money and the guarantee of knowing I'm taken care of no matter what happens. We'll see. I'm hoping that Jesse Bates has a big season and he parlays that into a massive deal somewhere next year. But he's back like cook crack. And then finally, we get to Kayvon Thibodeaux. So this was a huge topic of discussion. I was ashamed of Rich Eisen. His take was essentially this guy needs to be fined and suspended. And this, I'm like, dude, this shit happens all the time. I watched my starting tight end, Logan Thomas, get cut by a defensive end unnecessarily on the backside of a play that was already past them. And that took him out for the remainder of that season. And we're still dealing with the ill effects of it as we head into the following season. So I don't want to hear about this shit. It's a play that either you're going to outlaw or just shut up about it. You want to stay above the knee. That's the goal. It's taught that you stay above the knee. Thad Moss came in. It was a terrible block attempt. Took the man's knee out of it. Luckily enough for Kayvon Thibodeaux, it wasn't worse. Like I said, our guy didn't get away with a sprained MCL, which is what Kayvon Thibodeaux essentially has. He didn't get away with that. Our guy had his knee destroyed and had to have multiple surgeries to get back to the point where he is right now. So, and it happens all the time. We see guys get hurt all the time in these situations, whether it's a defensive end cutting a tackle or a tight end or vice versa. It's a part of the game. It's an ugly part of the game that I don't like. And until they decide to make a ruling on that, the best you can do is fine a guy, which is what happened last year to Yannick Ngakoue for taking out Logan Thomas. He got fined. He's not getting suspended. It's because it's within the framework to a degree, but it's an ugly play. I hate it. I don't like it, but what are you going to do? And Thad Moss, that's trash on your part. Like you got to go up higher than that shit. That's trash right there. But anyway, I digress. He's out 3 to 4 weeks. That sucks because we're 3 weeks out from the start of the regular season. The likelihood is he'll probably miss the first game of the season. When you're a rookie, you're itching, chomping at the bit to make an impact. He's going to probably try to rush it and get back. Hopefully the doctors and the team will err on the side of caution and say, hey, look, young fella, you got a lot of football ahead of you, man. Let's just make sure you're good for the remaining, 16 or 15 games if he's got to miss the first 2, and not worry about rushing you back all in for week 1. So hopefully they do right by Kayvon Thibodeau and don't put him back on the field until he's 100% healthy. Baltimore at Arizona, nothing to see here. Those 2 teams punted on this game. So I will just say Baltimore made it 22 in a row in terms of games they've won now in the preseason. Haven't lost a preseason game since 2015. So good for them. Atlanta at the Jets, final game of week 2 in the preseason. Marcus Mariota and that first team Falcons offense looks good yet again. They looked good last week. I talked about it against the Lions. First possession went right down the field, scored a touchdown. They were done. This week, first possession went right down the field, got a field goal. A big connection from Mariota to Kyle Pitts. We already know that young man's a problem. He went over a G in his rookie season as a tight end. So we already know Kyle Pitts is the real deal. So he has a big play, helps get them in the field goal range. They're not able to get in the end zone, but it's a great start. The following possession, Mariota takes them right down the field yet again. Some beautiful throws in there, a couple of runs, and a great strike to Olamide Zaccheaus for the touchdown. And at that point, you just go, wow. Marcus Mariota, man. I liked Mariota last year. I was intrigued by him. I wanted Washington to go after him, and the Raiders slapped us on the wrist and said, no, he's ours. So that sucked. But this is why there's such intrigue around Marcus Mariota. The problem with him is that at some point Mariota is going to, have a hamstring or some kind of soft tissue injury, or he's going to break his thumb, or he's going to do something Marcus Mariota-like that's going to keep him out of the lineup. And that's the thing that sucks with him, because the talent is definitely there. And he looks the part. And in, I think, 4 possessions of work for the Falcons' first-team offense, they've scored 17 points. 2 touchdowns and a field goal in 4 possessions. So they're moving the football, and they're very effective right now. And I don't love the weapons. I'm going to continue to talk about that. I like that they traded for Bryan Edwards from the Raiders. He's going to help. I think, Olamide Zaccheaus is a solid receiver. He's not a needle mover per se, but he's a solid receiver. You can do some things with him. Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson is where it's at for them. And then they need the first round pick wide receiver to come back and be healthy, one, and be exactly what they drafted him to be, which is the first receiver taken in this past year's draft in Drake London, to be the guy that completes their offense. Because if you get Cordero Patterson doing what he did last year, Kyle Pitts doing what he did last year, you add in a true number 1 wide receiver in Drake London, and then you get contributions from guys like Bryan Edwards and Olamide Zaccheaus, you got a shot offensively. But if Drake London is injured or he's not performing at the level you need him to, now you're asking a guy like OZ to be your number 1. That's where shit gets sketchy. Bryan Edwards is now, asking him to be more of a 2 when he's probably more suited to be a 3rd option, and shit goes off the rails at that point. So they got something. I still don't love their run game, but I am a fan of Williams, the running back that they got. Damian Williams, I think he was with the Bears last year after winning a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. I like Damian Williams. So I think their run game is sketchy at best, but Mariota's going to help add to that with his mobility. They look good on offense right now. We'll see if that continues when teams are really game planning to stop them and get after Mariota's ass. We'll see what happens then. The Jets are the Jets, man. Man, they are some lovable losers. they're unwatchable right now without Zach Wilson. There's no reason to watch them. I feel really bad for Garrett Wilson. He thought he was going to get Zach. And look, Zach Wilson isn't out for the season. Let's not, have this whole gloom and doom outlook on the Jets season. Like Zach Wilson's not coming back, because he is. But right now, I feel bad for the young fella, because like Joe Flacco will get him the football. And that'll be probably more so than Zach Wilson. Joe Flacco gives Garrett Wilson the best opportunity to go and be a stud. But they've got talent, though. That's the crazy part about the Jets, is they made all those moves at the tight end position, this offseason to bolster that group. They even drafted a guy that I was madly in love with his game out of Ohio State. Clearly, they bolstered the running back position by adding Breece Hall, and they drafted a receiver to go along with Elijah Moore and Braxton Berrios. So you're like, they got stuff. They got a ton of stuff. But none of that it matters if you don't have a quarterback. I mean, me being a Washington fan, I can tell you that firsthand, even though we haven't had a ton of stuff to work with either. Like, I don't want to make it seem like we've had all these weapons that we have now and we just didn't have a quarterback. No, we've been ass at the skill positions. Now we got all these weapons, and we're hoping that we have the right guy at quarterback to make it go. That's kind of where the Jets are. They got all these weapons, but I don't know if they've got the guy to make it go. The Mike White hype last year was funny. He stinks. Okay. Flacco again is Flacco, right? Joe Flacco. They need Zach Wilson to be healthy and to be good. And he hasn't been either of those things in the preseason, because even before he got hurt in that Eagles game, he threw a stupid pick. So they need him to be better, and they need him to be, first of all, healthy, and they need him to be good. Or else none of that works in New York with the Jets. So anyway, I digress. I see some comments. So before we get out of here, I'm going to go ahead and knock out some of these supers. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat and being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, Sonny, we rock with Big Game Hunter in the Discord. You've been pulling some great cards lately. Too bad that Kendall Fuller pull was a bit burnt, though. Good one. Hey, I appreciate y'all rocking with the Big Card Hunter. That's my other endeavor. For those of you who are not aware, I do collect cards. I'm about to start selling a lot of these cards. So if you're interested, hit the kid up. But I appreciate that. I appreciate y'all in the Discord supporting my other endeavor as well. But what I don't appreciate, as I told you yesterday, I don't appreciate the Kendall Fuller hate. And really, I've been talking about that with you for the last 4 days now, because you were killing them on Saturday after the game as well. And I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. I truly don't know where all the Kendall hate comes from, and where all the baked ZD discussions come from. I don't know. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Luck, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, y'all saw who we just signed like 10 minutes ago. I didn't see who we signed 10 minutes ago, but whoever it is, doesn't matter. That guy can't be an impactful player this close to camp, other than if he got released from another team and they really like this guy. I can't imagine a guy that we're signing heading into the third preseason game is going to be here for anything other than the third preseason game and then be released. So I generally don't get, too worked up about guys that get signed this time of, camp, which we're pretty much out of training camp at this point. I usually don't get too wrapped up in those signings because they're not going to be around for very much longer. I see what you tried to do there, but first of all, double up. My God. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Luck writes, these nuts. That's who we saw 10 minutes ago. I wasn't going to allow you to get me this time. I couldn't allow you to get it. I said, look, I don't know who we signed. I don't care, because I know that guy isn't going to be, helping his team. And your nuts are definitely not going to be helping this team. in this upcoming season. As a matter of fact, I think I used the phrase in my show today, nut cutting time. So it's nut cutting time here as we get this deep into the preseason. So anyway, Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny, thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes salty snacks? That's what Luck has, and a ton of them. And he's always looking to share. Always. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, we just playing with you, Lou. You know it's all love, of course. Of course. Y'all didn't get me as good as you got me the first time, And the only reason, if you would have went with a different angle, I'm not going to tell you what, because I don't want you to get me. But signing somebody this time of the year isn't going to have me like, who did we sign? You're not going to have me, on the edge of my seat, because I know that guy is going to be irrelevant. So had you come with something else, and I'm thinking of something right now in my head, had you said that, I would have been like, oh, for real? Who? you would have had me hook, line, and sinker again. Oh, man. But he says, we just impatient for the season to start, brother. Don't mind us. We all impatient, right? It's like hurry up and wait with this, preseason thing. At this point, I just am ready for this preseason shit to be over. Sick of worrying about, are they playing their starters? Oh, you had success, but who was it against? Like, it's too much shit that you got to try to sort through. And that's why I don't try to. Whether that's the other team's third string, second string, or starters, or some of their starters, doesn't matter. All you can do is control what you can control. Your job isn't to worry about what the other team's doing. If you're on the field, go out and execute. Go play well. That's all you can do. Anyway, I digress. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, Lou, the homie Mega been on point as far as analyzing all the positions thus far. He was very concerned with the O-line. I think we can put that to rest. Do you agree? Hashtag offense will lead the way. Hashtag top 5. I've said that I was never concerned with the offensive line. The injuries and the testing, the depth is always something that can make you nervous. But I told you, so far, our offensive line coach, John Masco, has given us no reason to doubt him. And I think Saturday was another example of that. Sliding Aaron Montero into the game and not having any issues with him. So I think we could put any issues with the offensive line to rest. We're getting healthier on the offensive line. We're getting guys back. Wes Schweitzer's back. Andrew Norwell is back. So with those two, you have a starting 5 now. Whether Trey Turner is back or not, with Sadiq Charles being there, with Wes Schweitzer being there, with Andrew Norwell being there, you got 5 guys that you trust. Cornelius Lucas is back as a swing tackle. So in a pinch, if something happens like it did this past weekend with Charles Leno Jr., you got your tackle. So we're good now. The offensive line is pretty much with the exception being Trey Turner and then obviously Tyler Larson being placed on the PUP list. With the exception of those 2 guys, we're pretty much where we need to be. So we're straight. I don't know what else he said about the rest of the roster and as far as, how he feels about what those guys are doing. But the offensive line is fine. I have no doubts about the offensive line. Spence Calise. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Spence Calise writes, Lou, thanks for the patience and keeping it real. Look, I'm going to talk more about this, and I talked about this on the show today, and that'll be uploading at 6 p.m. today. But I talked about teasing about Wednesday night live. We'll talk about the reaction to Monday's show and all the negativity, and I don't mind it. I'm not going to go into great details today, but we'll talk about it on Wednesday night. But I get it. This is the thing you have to understand. I've lived through it with you guys, so I understand where it is coming from. I just think that it's a bit misguided at this point of the season. But I totally get it. And we'll talk more about that on Wednesday night. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, you got to catch Hard Knocks this season. Highly entertaining. The Lions have big dogs for the coaching staff. How did we miss on Amon-Ra St. Brown? It's that not that you missed on Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just that we weren't in a position to take him. If you recall, that was the draft where, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. We had a second round pick that year, didn't we? Because he was not in this year's draft, but in 2021 draft. And I'm trying to think, was that the year that we didn't have a second round pick? And no, it wasn't. The 2020 draft was when we didn't have because we got Haskins in 19 and we had to give up the second rounder to get Montez Sweat. So we didn't have the second rounder in 2020. And Amon-Ra St. Brown was in the 2021 draft. So I think he just went earlier than we were looking to spend a pick on the receiver position, because remember, our biggest needs were linebacker going into that draft, and after they cut Moses, tackle was a priority, right? So we had to fill the void of tackle, which they did with Sam Cosmi, and we had to fill linebacker, which they did with Jamin Davis. And we knew we needed linebacker help, and they got us a corner in the third round and De'Ami Brown in the third round. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown went in the second round, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if it's a miss as much as it is he wasn't around when, they were looking to spend a pick on him. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny. And I'm going to get to Hard Knocks, I promise. I think the best time to have a conversation about it will be the week where there's no action next week. That'll be the perfect time to have a conversation about Hard Knocks. It says HBO is also doing midseason Hard Knocks with the Arizona Cardinals this season, starting in November. Took a page from the book of the Amazon series. Well, remember, they did it last year. That was the inaugural start to the in-season Hard Knocks, which was with the Indianapolis Colts, which is the one I keep telling y'all to watch with Carson Wentz, so that you can get a better feel for who he is as a person, who he is as a player, and how the Colts felt about him, which is why the narrative of the Colts thinking he was so terrible and they needed to get rid of him is false. You watch it. You see it transpire. They're lying to protect themselves and to make themselves look like they are doing the right thing in this situation, but that's nor here nor there. And Amazon did do it first. Once upon a time they had the Eagles, they had the Cowboys, the Eagles, and the Panthers. And that's how I got to know Ron Rivera, watching the Amazon series. I forgot what that one's called, but and yes, I'm going to watch that Hard Knocks. I'm going to get to that, I swear. Anyway, I digress. Got another one here from Brain Cells on Fire. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Brain Cells on Fire writes, do you think Pickett might have a higher ceiling than previously thought? I think the fact that he was drafted in the first round means people felt good about him. The fact that he wasn't a top 10, pick means that people weren't sold on him. So yeah, there's a chance that his ceiling could be higher. Obviously, that happens all the time. Look at Deshaun Watson. Look at Patrick Mahomes. These were guys taken outside of the top 10, or Mahomes was taken, I think, 10th overall, but Watson was taken outside of the top 10, and look what they morphed into. So absolutely. The league wasn't sold on Watson and Mahomes. That's why they were taken where they were taken. The league wasn't sold on Pickett. That's why he was taken where he was taken. The league wasn't sold on Lamar Jackson. That's why he was taken where he was taken. So definitely there's some a potential for the league to be wrong, for him to prove everyone wrong and prove the Steelers right, and for his ceiling to be a lot higher than people thought when he came out of Pitt. Absolutely. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, we picked De'Ami before Amon-Ra. Did we? I thought he was a second round pick. Maybe he was a third round pick. I thought he was a second round pick because De'Ami was a third round pick. But I know I saw like a little tidbit that he named every receiver that went in front of him So maybe he did go in the third round. Maybe he even went in the fourth. Maybe I'm way off on that. I knew I liked Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot. I thought he was a second round type of wide receiver. So he just set the franchise record for most receiving yards by a Lions rookie in franchise history this past year. So the guy's good. He's really good. So anyway, I digress. Anyway, so that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me here on the 285th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Thursday as we finally head into the final week of the preseason. And so we'll preview that, among other things, on next podcast and kind of look towards the weekend and getting ready for the start of the regular season. If you're out there, don't forget, the Louie T Network exclusives are up and available. If you're interested in the Survivor Pool, the link is down in the description. If you're interested in Winners and Losers, which is a year-long football pool that tallies your wins and losses all year long, and at the end, you get the championship strap and all of the cash prizes from the entrance in the pool. Winner takes all. If you're interested in that, please sign up. Again, link down in the description below on how to do that. Also, there are videos that are up explaining those pools and leagues. Also, weekly pick'em pool is a weekly football pool. Each week, there's no season-long obligation. It's just 1 week. You pick winners, and you get the pot for that week's pot. You get the winnings for that week's pot. So, and that's another one of those situations where we're putting your NFL knowledge to the test. So either you could do it for the entire season, you could do it on a weekly basis if you don't want to commit to a year-long thing. And then there's the Survivor Pool. If you're interested, links are down in the discussion. So looking forward to you guys signing up for that. In the meantime, get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. I got a couple of supers here on the way out. This one from Red Wing 01. Amon-Ra was like a fifth rounder. Thank you for the super chat, Red Wing 01. Greatly appreciate you. Was he really a fifth round pick? I don't think he was that. I don't think he was drafted that low. Was he that low? No way. I'd have to look that up. Red Wing 01. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, no, fourth rounder. Damn. Okay. That sounds about right. You know, third, fourth, somewhere in there. Fifth would have been too low. Fourth is still shocking to me that he went that low. I thought that he went in the third round a little bit later, you know, initially I thought he was a second round pick, but that's because that's the grade I gave him. I thought he was a second round wide receiver, but apparently the rest of the league spoke and said he was not, in fact, a second round nor a third round receiver. So I think he went in the fourth, if you guys are correct. And obviously, watching Hard Knocks, he would have ran off all the receivers in front of him. So probably is a fourth round pick. Yikes. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're a Washington fan, in 20 minutes, there will be an upload. Check that out. And then we'll wrap tomorrow live for the Command Post live tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. Until then, you guys have a good one. God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.